Welcome to the Migrant Resource Centre, Northwest Region Incorporated Diversity and Disability YouTube channel. Your Life, Your Voice program, where self-advocates and professionals in the disability sector are interviewed.
The Diversity and Disability Project would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we work and live and recognise their continued connection to land, water and community. We pay respects to elders past, present and emerging.
Nothing about us without us. We pay respects to all self-advocates who have worked hard over the years and are still working tirelessly for their rights, supporting others with disabilities and human rights for all.
This channel is for people with disabilities who aspire to seek self-advocacy role models to inspire change in their everyday lives. Nothing about us without us. Choice and control are central themes. Every interview is as unique as you and I.
And it has a fundamental universal human rights ethos of respect for persons with disabilities, having their views heard and acknowledged. After all, it's all in the name. Your life, your voice.
Be the voice of change in your life.
Good morning and welcome to Your Life, Your Voice. On this really lovely day, today we have Maryanne Cosic, who is a self-advocate from rural Victoria. From St. Leonard's in rural Victoria. Welcome, Maryanne. How are you doing?
Good, thanks, Julie. How are you?
Right. And he's in the driving seat today. Welcome, Guler Thomas. Hi, Guler. How you doing?
Hi, I like how you say my name. Hi, everyone. Hope you're all going well. Welcome to our show.
I got it right after Umbus times of practicing. So anyway, so thanks a lot for that acknowledgement, Guler Thomas. I like saying it now. Anyway, so without further ado, let's get into some questions, Maryanne. So, Maryanne, would you like to tell us a little bit about your background?
Well, I'm first generation Australian, but I've got Maltese heritage.
And can you tell us a little bit about your self-advocacy, your background?
I'm 46. I think I've been doing it my self-advocacy for 40 years. I mean, I've been advocating for myself for as long as I could talk. So I think I'm what you'd call a self-advocate pro. Trying to change.
Do you think, Maryanne, that being of a Maltese origin, do you think that had something to do with you being able to try to take control of your life at a very early age?
Not necessarily. I think it was, in my case, I was the only disabled person in my community. So I had to stand up for myself because I was the only different, what people would call different. There was no other person except for me in my community with a disability or a child with a disability. I was the only one.
What was that like?
It was a nightmare. I was lucky in when I went to mainstream kinder and special kinder as well. But I was lucky because all the kids I used to go to kinder with accepted me for me and didn't treat me any differently. And it made it so much fun. But when I got to primary school, it was totally different.
And yeah, it changes, doesn't it?
But I wasn't accepted. That was the whole thing. Even though the government had made all these rules that in 1980, whatever, I think 3, they decided in their great wisdom that people like me with high IQs could go to a mainstream school, but if the school didn't, if the principal didn't accept you, you weren't going to be accepted. And even though they had tried to implement integration aids and making the school accessible, I found that I had a really hard time being accepted by the principal because I was different. And he wouldn't
Maryanne, yeah, I understand that it was complex, being in the same, like, treated equally and things, but you've also been quite a success. Like, in the corner, we can see that you've graduated, you've studied, you've taken it further from primary school and the difficulties in your, high school era, and now
high
you're
school.
with us.
High school was a lot easier because back when I was at high school, there was a lot more of us in school and things. By the 1990s, everything was all about disability and making it accessible.
That's great.
So,
Really?
but I still found myself still advocating for people with disabilities that were at high school because like opening doors was difficult. Having only one disabled toilet was difficult because the school didn't have it. Well, they had one disabled toilet for 5 people, which I eventually got changed, and I made the school put a disabled toilet and a shower in the gymnasium just for us because it was ridiculous having to run from one side of the high school to go to the bathroom, which was in the admin building. And I made that was my lasting legacy. I think putting the toilet and the shower in the gymnasium and doing minor changes and getting teachers to see that I wasn't deliberately breaking windows. I was just trying to access to get through doors, and then I showed them what they could do to make it easier.
Well
and
done.
Everybody could use their wheelchair to push the door open without breaking windows, which is only like putting little bits of wood across the door so we could use it as a bull bar, but it made it look so much easier.
Yes, it's good when people think of things and being inclusive of differences and diversity. That's the main thing, is inclusive, and sounds like you're a bit of a mover and a shaker with getting things happening.
I've been doing it all my life, and sometimes that's where I get frustrated because I think of where I live now, and it's what I call not Maryanne friendly. Like, I live on a dirt road with no footpaths, and it makes it so hard and so dangerous for me to walk to the shops because there's no footpath. So I have to compete with trucks and cars, but I'm slowly getting something that's wheelchair friendly, but it's going to take me another probably 10 or 15 years to do.
Yeah.
But I'm up for the challenge.
Well, we're here barracking for you. So, yeah. Julie, what would you like to ask Maryanne about? Like, what are you thinking?
Well, we've already gone through some of the goals Maryanne has achieved. And self-advocacy is the sort of thing that is an ongoing process. So, and like a lot of self-advocates have actually, achieved a large goal after 15 years or 20 years. So I'd like to encourage Maryanne to talk about that a bit more. Do you have anything else to say about that, Maryanne?
I might have achieved a lot, But to me, I suppose to the outside world, I've achieved a lot. But to me, it's just everyday life, and it's not that it doesn't mean anything. I just don't see it as important because it's just my day-to-day living, and if I can make it changeable, so be it. And the way I see self-advocacy, it's not just for the disabled person. It's for the elderly, or you don't know. 1 minute you could be walking, and next minute you could have an accident or get an illness that you I think confined to a wheelchair or whatever the circumstance might be. And if I can make it Maryanne friendly, I can make it people friendly. It's not just for me, it's for everybody. And that's what I try to get through to council. Yes, I'm your pain in the backside nagging and whinging about certain things not being done correctly. But if I can get their mindset to change that in 15, 20 years' time, when you're 50, 60, 70 years old, you're going to need a wheelchair, you're going to need footpath, you're going to need access. It's not just me, it's going to be 20 years down the track when you need to get on a wheelchair accessible bus, when you need a ramp, when you need a footpath. You don't need it now, but 20 years' time you will. You got to think 20 years in advance, not 20 years backwards.
And it's also, you're quite right. And it's also the fact that, with the town planners of places, or, architects, to actually consider that in their university life, like to be able to go there and talk to people who are coming up in the field to work in those areas. They need people like you, like advocates, to actually say that these issues are important. Is there anything like that? Do you know if there's
Well, the one thing that really annoys me is when I know they've got the building codes, and when they build new buildings, it's done to building codes, but they don't have somebody who's in a wheelchair to go test these things out before they build them. And that's the big change that we need. We need doors to be automatic. We need to be able to push them open. We need them big enough, because wheelchairs are custom made to the person. They're not generic. You can't just buy, unless you're buying a push chair with somebody else pushing you. They're all custom made. So that door sizes have to be wider. Sizes of toilets have to be wider, because the chairs are getting bigger and you need a bigger turning circle. If you look at shopping centres, unless they build a new section where they've got new big toilets, the old section, I can't use toilets. I can't. If you look at the lift, if you look at the old section of some shopping centres, the lift buttons are too high. If I was in my old wheelchair, I couldn't use it. But with my new wheelchair, my seat goes up and down, so I can actually reach buttons and whatever else I need to reach. But the architects and teachers and people that design things need to take into consideration. They need to stop looking at it from someone standing up, and need to put themselves in a sitting position to design these things, because you see it from a person who's got ability, not a person with a disability. And that's the mindset we have to change for architecture, permits, buildings, ramps, complexes, I don't know, even tapes. I mean, when I was doing my diploma, I couldn't use them. Yes, they had disabled toilets, but I could get in them, but I couldn't get out of them. So they were accessible to a point if you had somebody with you, but they weren't accessible if you were on your own. Because the doors were so heavy, I couldn't go to the bathroom on my own. So before I left and they upgraded the tape in Geelong, I made sure when they were upgrading the whole campus that it had some sort of way that it was Maryanne Proof. So if somebody had limited movement and they needed to go to the bathroom, they could still get in and out to go wash their hands or go to the toilet, or if they didn't have a carer, they could still do whatever they had to do so they could be semi-independent.
It's actually quite important, because you get frustrated and things like that. But you know, calling it Maryanne Proof is actually a good tag to say to people, is this Maryanne Proof? Like, so that you could be a consultant in this area with people that don't consider the accessibility of buildings and things like that. You're raising very important issues, and I can't believe, like, in 2021, I mean, we're still trying, aren't we? Like, you think people would have it by now.
I mean, before I moved to my mum's after my divorce, I was living in Whittington, which is a suburb part of Geelong. And sometimes the buses were, the public transport was full, so I'd crack it and I'd walk home, which would take me an hour. But the footpaths were not always accessible. So before I left Whittington, and they used to have what they call a community group called Whittington Works, I made the council workers I used to work with walk from Whittington into the CBD. And I'm like, are you for real? I said, well, if you walk the way I walk home, you will see every footpath that I use that's not accessible. And I made them change every single gutter on the footpath and make it Maryanne Proof, which is prayer proof, which is elderly proof, which is scooter proof. So if it's Maryanne Proof, it should be everybody proof. So I changed the whole landscape of all the footpaths from the CBD of Geelong out to East Geelong. And that was before I left. And that was 2.5 years ago. So
wow.
I've done a lot of work, and I sometimes get recognition, but the recognition is not what I want. I want it to be accessible for me to be able to be independent. Independence is the most important thing that someone like me can have. I mean, I can't rely on carers, because if you can't get carers, what are you going to do? You can't sit in one spot. You've got to be able to do what you need to do. And where I live, I can't get carers all the time. So I have to be self-sufficient. I have to be Maryanne Proof, because Mum's not always here to help me because she's busy. I've got nobody else at home, even though I live with Mum. So I've got to be Maryanne Proof.
Which means you've got to be very organised, don't you, to be able to do all your things that you need to do to get ready for the day, or for getting ready for something else. I can just imagine how difficult that must be, day in, day out, the same needs, and being able to go through it. Like, you would have it down pat, like you'd have your routine down pat.
I live my life with a plan A, a plan B, a plan C, and a plan D. If plan D doesn't work, I'm up the paddle with it. I'm up the creek without a paddle. Because if plan D doesn't work, I'm literally stuck. But I've always come up with a solution, whether it's sitting there swearing my head off and somebody walks in the door and goes, "Can you be my arms?" Or I just have to wait till if I can't find any other solution, I just have to ask for, hopefully find somebody to help me. Which
I
is
wonder if
rather
any of them,
frustrating.
Maryanne, I wonder if people watching right now could relate to you, and are there people, is there like support groups for people to raise, like a group of advocates in your area where you can all come together and be, like, it sounds like you've done it all in isolation, like it's always been you, and it doesn't sound like people
But
have.
you know what really frustrates me, and it's a negative, but it's a positive too. Is the people I used to work with are all able-bodied. They're all either on the council or community groups, and the one thing that really annoys me and goes, "Well, you're always whinging." Well, I'm not whinging. I'm just making the point that you are not considering my needs and other people's needs. It's yes, I bitch and I might whinge, but there is a reason for it, and you've got to. And eventually, I get their mindset to change because I make them sit in a chair and I go, "Now you push, or you walk where I walk, and you think about me when you walk down that footpath. Is that safe?" But it's a whole. It takes me about 2 years to get an able-bodied person to change their mindset and see things from a sitting perspective and not seeing it as me bitching and whinging, but actually seeing the improvements I'm trying to instill in the community.
It sounds like there's a little bit of negativity out there by saying whinging, because all you're doing is really standing up for your rights and giving feedback about their things, isn't it? Like, it's
Take
not
it the wrong
whinging.
way. I think I'm attacking them, but I'm not. I'm just pointing out the blatant mistakes that have been put there, and they don't want to admit that they've screwed up.
Yeah.
And that's when they call me that I'm bitching and whinging. And it's like, no, this is my life. I live this 24 hours a day. You've got your legs. You can get out of trouble. If I fall out of my chair, I can't get myself off the floor. I've got to wait for somebody to come and get me off the floor. You've got to see it from that perspective.
Yeah. It's almost like, you have to be so assertive in your life with things and give feedback. And we need to look at the discussions that we have with people so that they can understand you. They can like, they need feedback. It's almost like maybe looking at other ways that you've tried to enlist help. So it sounds like you've been successful. It takes a few years, but you're a very successful advocate.
It blows my mind in the things that I can do, but it's so mentally exhausting.
Mm-hmm.
And at 46 now, I know people say I'm young and I can do a lot more, but I feel like I need to slow down because I need to give myself permission to not be jumping up and down like a cat on a red hot tin roof, because that's what I've been doing for 46 years, and I need to chill out. And I'm not as much on the advocacy. I don't do as much advocacy as what I used to, where I used to run around and do every project that comes up. I used to be in there going to Melbourne, doing whatever, going to Swan Hill, you name it, I used to do it. Now I'm very selective in where I put my.
So you're looking at the wording, like the way to have you sort of need to be really assertive and give constructive feedback to people about issues.
I think now that COVID's hit, it's changed my. Like I used to, if you ask Julie, I used to run around to Melbourne, and if I can work from home, I'll give you whatever time you need. But you ask me to come to Melbourne or go to Geelong, and it's like, no, because I suppose I want to stay in my own little bubble where I know I'm safe because of all these illnesses, and because I've got my lungs are compromised. If I get sick, I get sick for 3 weeks. So if I can do a Zoom thing like today, I'd rather do a Zoom than jump on a bus and then jump on it. Because for me to go to Melbourne, it takes me 4.5 hours to get to Melbourne. And I've got to get up at stupid o'clock, which is about 10 to 6 in the morning. I'm getting too old for 10 to 6. If I can do it from home and still get my message across, I'm more than happy to do it that way. And at least I can work. I don't have to pay for carers. I don't have to pay for transport. I can go to the toilet when I need to. Because the house is set up for me to be able to do stuff mostly by myself.
So COVID and technology has made you equalized with everyone else. It's putting you on the same level ground with everyone else.
Yeah, and I don't have to do stupid o'clock in the morning and jump up, because where I live, it's all, I live on a dirt road. So in the middle of winter, we would have 6-foot-inch holes that I'd be jumping up and down on the dirt road, trying to get to a bus stop, trying not to get run over, jump on a bus, travel for an hour and a half to get to Geelong, and then another hour to Melbourne, and then another whatever it is to wherever I've got to get to. Whereas if I'm at home, I can get to you twice as quick without having to move. So COVID's done me a favour. It's made me feel normal without having to go out. And I don't have to worry about taxis, and I don't have to worry about, do I have to fit in this time slot or that time slot, or I can fit as many people as I can in that day or whatever I need to do. Or I can have a chill out session at home and I'm happy. I don't have to try and beat traffic and taxis and buses and trains and run up and down platforms anymore. Yay for COVID. That's a good thing.
I think a lot of people with diversity and disability have found the equal ground with people now.
Exactly.
It's such a, like, I mean, none of us, we're all in, lockdown number 6, and we're all meaning to isolate, but it's actually helped you become more independent.
And more normal. And I don't have to say, I'm in a wheelchair, I need a taxi, or I need a carer to take me to the bathroom, because I don't need that anymore. If I need help, I wait till I finish doing what I'm doing, and then I go, hey, mum, or hey, carer, can I please have a 5-minute break to go to the bathroom? I don't have to pay anybody to take me to the toilet. I can take myself to the bathroom. And I've got my independence back. So I'm glad that we're doing technology talks and me not having to say, I am in a wheelchair, this is my restrictions. Now there is no restrictions. We're all equal, we're all the same, we're all stuck in lockdown, and we're still doing our jobs, if not better.
Absolutely.
So
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, hopefully it makes the able-bodied world think of the changes we need to make so it's equitable and easier for everybody.
Yes, so we've talked about it a lot over the last seconds of how much more equitable, as much as COVID is awful in general economically for people, businesses, and a lot of people. For people with disabilities, it's actually made it a living playing field, which is really quite an unexpected outcome, quite honestly, for able-bodied people. Because even creatives in the art world, they're telling us now that, big organisations in St Kilda Road who got thousands of dollars of funding, suddenly we're all on the same platform, we're on the Zoom platform. So, it's really interesting how things can have positive and negative for people. And so Guler, would you like to comment?
I'm thinking of, is there a difference for you, Maryanne, and maybe other people that are watching? Is there a difference between having an added layer of being culturally and linguistically diverse? Like, is there other layers to your story, Maryanne and Julie?
Well,
what would you two say or think?
Well, in my case, it doesn't really matter because the Maltese community or the Maltese heritage was always with the we were always colonised with England, so Malta's always got an English. Most younger Maltese can speak pretty good English because of the tourist factor. It's only the older, like my grandmother and my great-grandmother and all those before them that won't speak English. But the coming generations and my generation and can all speak fluent English. So I don't think we've got a barriers in communications, but maybe culturally things are changing. Because I know my mum went back 2 years ago and she said Malta's completely, even the way they live is completely different to when I went back 30 years ago. I went back 31 years ago. And I think I was the only disabled person you would see in the street. Whereas now they're all into Special Olympics and they all do their sport and they're all interactive and they're more accepting of people with disabilities. But I think culturally, I don't know whether it's changed or it's harder. I mean, to me, I love my Maltese culture. I would rather live over there than here because they're more accepting over there than they are in Australia, unfortunately. That's how I feel, but that's my point of view. Someone else might have something completely different. But I love the Maltese culture. I love living. When we went over there for 3 months when I was 15, I loved it. I didn't want to come back here because I felt like I fitted into that culture. Whereas in Australia, for me, I feel I don't fit anywhere. Doesn't matter what I do or how many people or what accolades I get, I still don't feel like I am worthy, I fit. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's just something that I've always felt because when I was growing up, going to school, I was always told that I would never be anything. I would never be accepted. And ever since then, I've had that feeling that no matter what I did what I achieve, it's not good enough, even though the people are amazed. But to me, what I do as a person doesn't count. And I think that's just the way I've been programmed. And it's taken me a long time to unprogram myself, because I was always told at school that I was never worthy, I was never going to be anything, even though I've done a zillion things and changed communities and helped communities fit and help advocate for kids and adults. And to me, it's just my everyday thing that I do. I don't see what I do as something special. I just see it like it's my everyday thing that I do, and I don't expect or demand accolade or recognition. It's just something that I've done all my life. So that's just me. Maybe it's wrong, maybe it's right. I don't know, but I feel like I don't fit anywhere.
But it sounds like you've got a superpower, like, your superpower is getting what suits Maryanne that suits everyone else,
Oh, thank you. I didn't think of it that way, but thank you for that.
Pleasure. Just listening to you, my heart and my mind, I can really feel some of the things that you're saying, and I hope other people watching, you've made their life a bit of a difference too, like what you're going through and sharing that,
You've
Thank
just
you.
got to find something that you're, I suppose, passionate about. I suppose I do my advocacy, and sometimes when I see stuff on the TV, I literally lose my temper and my patience, especially with politicians and what they come up with. And it's like, hang on a minute, you're making decisions on how it affects us. Why not ask us before you put all these policies and procedures in place? Because if you're making a decision on our funding and telling me that what I need is not important, when I know what I need will make a big difference, that frustrates the bejeebers out of me. Like, I mean, I'm not exactly. I'm probably a high functioning cerebral palsy person, but there are a lot of people that can't speak, that can't move, that can't do what they would love to do. They can't tell you what they want. And when able-bodied people or practitioners or whatever they are turn around and go, that's not a high priority, put yourself in the person's shoes first before you say you're not able to have that piece of equipment or you're not able to participate. That's not fair. You've got to stand for the person that's asking you why they're asking you for that piece of equipment. It's not a luxury. It actually makes their life better and more independent, and the quality of life is better.
Yeah, because all the technology here that we've got, like, I know quite a few people who have got different conditions and they have to talk through, is it the Dynon box? Like they have to go through the voice to explain themselves and type it all in, and it takes a lot of energy and you get tired, I believe.
Well, I was lucky enough last week. I got the funding for my electric door, for my back door. Now, I used to be able to open my back door, but because my mobility is slowly deteriorating, I have trouble opening doors. Now, NDIS is giving me the ability with an electric function on the door so I can push a button and open the door, because we're in a fire-prone area, if there's a fire, I can't sit there fighting with the door trying to open it. So now I've got the door that I can push a button open and push it on the way out and it's closed. I don't have to sit there and for 15 minutes trying to open a door that should be so easy to open, and that's made a big difference to my life. It's expensive, granted, but it's given me my independence and my safety back. Because if I'm stuck or if I fall and somebody has to come and get me and they can't get in the door, they can at least open the door and get in. Or I can let them in by pushing a button. So it's made a big difference. Yes, it costs a fortune, but it's definitely made my life better.
Maryanne, do you remember the project that the ED were involved in, Dangerous Deeds?
Yeah.
So can you tell everyone the premise behind Dangerous Deeds? Would you like me to fill you in a bit?
Yeah, can you fill me? Because that was 10 years, I think. Was that 10 years ago?
It was a while ago.
I was going to say it would be close to 10 years ago that I did that project.
So we got funding and support from SARU to develop our stories. So the DD steering committee all had stories, and it was basically about living normal lives, and then everyone else in the community thinking it's extraordinary. So and I don't know what your story was about, Maryanne. This resource can be found on the SARU Your Life SARU Voice Together website under resources. And my story was about education and how that freed me into a better life. Do you remember what your story was, Maryanne?
I honestly can't remember, but it would have had to be about being, I suppose, I think I can't honestly remember, but I reckon mine would have been to advocate and to make everybody an equal. And my education, because I love school, but I found it hard. But that's why I kept going, and I wanted to make a difference. There was two or three teachers in my school life that really impacted me, that made me want to teach. Like, I've got my TAE qualification, even though I'm going to upgrade it. That's what I've always wanted to do, is teach disability services, teach able-bodied people how to look after us as people. We're not a number. We're not a number. We're people, and you're not doing us a favour by helping us. You're getting paid to do a job. You're not doing it for a favour. You're providing a service so that we can be independent. And without carers, people with disabilities are stuck. And if we didn't have the disability sector, people wouldn't have jobs. So we have to work hand in hand with each other, because it works. If we don't have carers, they don't have jobs, we don't have people to get us out of bed. We don't have people to assist us to live whatever we want to live our life as. But it's a partnership between carer and a person with a disability. I don't use the word client. I don't like the word. We're people. We're not clients. We're people. We're hopefully, whether you're active in your community or not, that's okay. Do what you can. Find what your niche is and do the best you can. And maybe some way down the track, you can make a difference in your community just by being a part of your community, because it makes people stand up and take notice. And if we watched the Olympics over the last couple of weeks, that was inspiring. I love sport. I love playing basketball and netball, but I'm not an athlete. But what Dylan Alcott had said yesterday is exactly what we need the community to realise. We are people. We can be entertainers, we can be doctors, we can be lawyers, we can be mums, we can be dads, we can be whatever you want to be. The only thing that's stopping us is society allowing us to try. If you try and fail, find something else. Somewhere along the line, you will find something that you're good at. And what the able-bodied world has to realise, don't put obstacles in our way. We've got enough obstacles in our life to achieve what we want. Don't put any more doubt and negativity, because there's enough negativity in people's heads that they're not going to achieve what they want. Be there and be proud of the person that you're working with. Make it a little bit easier. Don't hand it to them on a plate, but make the obstacles less big to climb over. Because we're all equal, we're all special in our own way. We've just got to find what that speciality is. Doesn't matter whether you're in a wheelchair, standing up, got legs, got no arms. Somewhere along the line, we all fit somewhere. You just got to give us a chance to shine. And we're not going to be all athletes. We're not all going to be millionaires, but we can make a difference.
So you're talking about the social model of disability, Maryanne, and in my view, there are a couple of layers. There's the environment, which is making the environment accessible for everyone, which is something that the building codes are addressing, I believe. One of our speakers has been involved in a working group, and that's slowly happening.
It might not, it's happening, but it's not going to happen in my lifetime. I don't think you will see change, but it won't happen in my lifetime. It'll happen in the next couple of generations, I think.
I think, Maryanne, what you described to us is with your work in self-advocacy, you actually started this ball rolling in your community. So we all teach in different ways, and we all learn in different ways.
Yeah.
I think that's going to be a huge legacy that you leave behind for others. It's another barrier removed, and Glenn mentioned this earlier on, we need to have consultants, self-advocacy consultants, where people in wheelchairs and others, and that's happening too really slowly. So how do we speed that process up, I suppose, would be a question.
The other thing I'd like to say is I would like to see people who consult and who do jobs for people or organisations actually get proper payment, not expecting the person with a disability to do it for free. Like, I've had people go up to me and go, "Oh, would you do this?" "Yeah, I can do that for you." Oh, I had my own disability consultancy business. I'm trying to teach kids about disability and how to interact with me in the community. And it all comes down to money. People see people with disabilities as a resource, but I think it's changing now. But back in my day, you were expected to pass on all the knowledge and get nothing for it. And that needs to change. We've got a lot of information in our heads, and we've got lots of resources. that we could pass on, but we need to be compensated for our time.
Yes, you're an expert. You're an expert and you've got lived experience to prove it, you know. What else I'm really interested in is, Maryanne, what's your vision for culturally and linguistically diverse people with a disability in society, say in 20 years' time?
In 20 years' time, what would I think I just want us to be equal. Whether you can speak English or whether you're in your community, helping your community, please start treating us as equals and not a burden to society. It doesn't matter what your disability is. Some way, somehow you contribute. And I want this stigma to go away, that we're a problem, that you need to hide us away. You don't need. When I was growing up, when I was little, I've got to say my mum and my dad never hid me away. I went everywhere they went. But I hope in 20 years' time, people can have their own families. People can do whatever they want, and they don't have to be ashamed and embarrassed of their disability. There is no, that we can get rid of this word disability. It's not a disability. It's a. I wish this word. I'm not ashamed of being disabled, but I want that word to be inclusive. It's not a disability to be different. You should be able to embrace your differences and be accepted for who and what and you are without having the disabled tag put on you. Because once you got a tag, you put in a box. We don't want to be we don't want to be labelled. We want to be equals, accepted. I don't want to label. I've had a label for the last 46 years. I want that label to be gone. I'm not ashamed of being disabled. I don't know any different, but I don't want the community to keep using the disabled tag as an excuse to make us accepted in our profession, in our schools, in our community groups. We're all the same. The only difference is we are sitting down. We've got one leg missing. We might have a cognitive impairment. We've got something different about it. How many able-bodied people do we know that have got impairment, but you can't see them? So we should be equal. We don't need a label anymore. Those labels should be gone by the time I'm 60, hopefully. By the time I'm 60, I'm hoping to God that these labels are non-existent, that we're all equal, we're all people, we're all accepting, we're all encouraging each other to be the best people we can be, the best communities we can be. We don't need labels. We don't need cultural labels. We are people first before our stupid labels that you put on us.
You know, Maryanne, I actually did a project this year and I also do art, like I'm a visual artist and multimedia performer, kind of like artwork. And I called my my project Human First with a question mark. So like what I did was I interviewed 10 deaf and disabled artists about their arts practice and how COVID affected them and what's up to. And at that time, I thought the word human first is how we want to be treated.
Thank you. I love that title.
Yeah. And so can you think of a change, another word yourself? Like, have you thought about a word that would describe you in an honourable way that shows that, you know, like that there needs to be integrity with people when they're talking to people with diversity and disability. You know, have you got a word or?
No, but the other thing I'd like to say with that is don't treat us like we're stupid. Treat us like you would like to be treated. We're all equal. So I suppose just people in general. Unless you're going to get funding, then you might have to use the disabled tag. But in our communities, that disability tag should be obsolete. There should not be a disabled tag on there. It should be, unless you're talking about Olympics or whatever, that's a little bit different because the Olympics for the disabled is a community and they've got their own identity. But I understand. But what I would like to say is just community, not tags, not cultures, not black, white, pink, whatever. Just people would be nice. We're all people. We're not things. We're not animals. We're not whatever. We're just normal, everyday people with differences. Why can't we be people with differences without having a stupid label put on us? Because that label also brings shame, and that's why you've got cultures that won't go and ask for help because they're ashamed of that tag. And in cultures, they don't use the word disability because they don't know what the word disability is until they come here. If you look at the Maltese culture, they don't use the word disabled. They will explain to you what is wrong with the person's head or leg, or they will use the body part to explain what the disability is. They don't use the word disabled. And that's what we've got to get rid of. We've got to get rid of these stupid labels because I know when I was growing up, that label stuck with me and it's like it's glue, and then you're only known as Maryanne the disabled person, not Maryanne the person that does stuff. The disability comes first. And
you're
that's
not like advocate, like, you know, self-advocate and you know, people changer and policy changer and all sorts of beautiful things.
Exactly. But if we can get rid of that disability tag, don't get me wrong, I'm not ashamed of being disabled. I love the fact that I'm different. But can we just change the terminology so that we don't feel isolated? Because that makes me feel isolated. Having that tag put on me. That's me personally. I don't know what anybody else thinks out there, but that's me. I don't like the disabled tag.
How about the word diversity?
I love the word diversity. I just don't like the disability bit. Diversity I love because it means everybody. It doesn't matter where you come from. It's a diverse community. I love the word diversity.
Yeah, because it encompasses everyone. It's universal.
Exactly.
We're human first. We're people first. Yeah.
Exactly. People first and diversity second.
Yeah. Well, we're almost finished for this today, and really appreciate your time and how you're shared your experience, you know, your self-advocacy, someone that, you know, who's like a superhero, you know, you got a special power and making people understand. Yeah.
Well, I hope I've made people who are watching today feel better about themselves, and it doesn't matter what your disability is. To me, it's only you that are stopping you from achieving what you want. If you put your mind to it, and yes, you might need help, but you can, whatever your mind whatever you set in your mind you can achieve, it might take you a lifetime to achieve it, but you can achieve it. And if you don't achieve it, find something else that you are passionate about.
Thank you. Julie, how would you like to end?
Well, thank you, Maryanne. Always inspiring, and some really interesting things we can unpack for our viewing audience, and hopefully get some council people to have a look at this program and take on some of the suggestions. So thank you, Maryanne, for your insights, and we look forward to some more Maryanne. Maryanne, what's the word you use, Maryanne? Maryanne Proof.
Maryanne Proof.
In the future. So thank you so much for your time.
You're very welcome. Thank you for your time.
Yes.
Would you like to set up the outro now, Guler?
Yep. Bye, everyone. Thank you. Catch us on Your Life, Your Voice YouTube channel live every Monday fortnight or on demand.
We would like your comments and suggestions on topics that you would like us to explore. Leave your comments on YouTube comment section.
Please feel free to email us on dndyourlifeyourvoice@gmail.com or contact us via the Migrant Resource Centre Northwest Region Inc. Phone number 1300 676 044. 1300 676 044.
Diversity in Disability is a project of the Migrant Resource Centre Northwest Region Incorporated, and would like to thank the management for funding this project, especially living through the COVID-19 pandemic. The pandemic has been difficult for people with disabilities living in isolation.